Hey everybody, Movie Reviewer Next Door here, and I'm back with the Bond series with A View to a Kill. This film is from 1985, directed by John Glenn, and it stars Roger Moore, Grace Jones, Christopher Walken, Tanya Roberts, Patrick Macnee, and Patrick Beauchamp. Now, in this Bond film, a newly developed microchip designed by Zorin Industries for the British government that can survive the electromagnetic radiation caused by a nuclear explosion has landed in the hands of the KGB. James Bond must find out how and why. His suspicions soon lead him to big industry leader Max Zorin. Now, that said, what do I think of this film? Well, I like it. These last two James Bond films from starring Roger Moore are kind of a mixed bag at times. Especially Octopussy, I went between saying it was decent and good all this time, and I landed on decent this time around, which I think that's how I feel, really. This one, I think is... Excuse me? But I just think it fixes a lot of the problems that I had with Octopussy, especially the pacing. I think the pacing is a lot more consistent here. But yeah, let me get to the actors first. Roger Moore is James Bond. This being his final Bond film, how do I think he does? I do think this is one of his weaker performances, and I don't think it's entirely his fault. Now, in Hollywood, constantly actors will feel the need, and they'll get pressured by people that they work with to, get a facelift, get Botox, get breast implants. And it's all this thing of, looking more youthful. Roger Moore already looked really damn good at the age of 55 or 56 in Octopussy, so I don't know why he felt the need to get a facelift. Now, it's only a big problem in certain dialogue scenes. For the most part, it's not that big of an issue, but there are moments where he stares a hole through someone, looking like, and it's a bit concerning looking. But other than that, his performance is fine. He's decent here. That's about as high as I can go, because yeah, in Octopussy he was still really good in the role. I think he's really good in the role from Spy Who Loved Me up to Octopussy. But this one, no. He's still decent, though. He still has the charm. He can still pull it off. I just wish... I'll get into it a bit more. But I wish they had kept certain things a bit different with the character for this time around. Grace Jones is Mayday. She is the sidekick and lover of Max Zorin. I like Grace Jones in this. I really do. I think she's one of the more interesting Bond girls, or villains, in that she basically defects after Zorin leaves her behind, and I think that it's a very interesting character decision. I think it adds a lot to her character. I think it gives the way she exits the film way more meaning, and it's actually really nice to see a Bond film do that with the girl. And she's very exotic looking, which I think really works for the character she's going for. She's not trying to be like, everyone finds her hot. It's supposed to be more people are terrified by her. And yeah, Grace Jones is pretty terrifying. I'm going to say that right there. Christopher Walken as Max Zorin, maybe one of my favorite villains. I love him in this. I really do. He's literally like a Nazi, like a baby born from Nazi experiments to breed better bloodlines and all that, which I kind of like that. I know some people had an issue with the whole Holocaust experimenting on unborn babies thing and them coming out like that. I know some people will be like, it's so exploitative. It's a fucking Bond movie. Some things are going to be exploitative. I think it's interesting. And the fact that they breed better, they have better bloodlines, but they are ultimately psychotic, which really works casting Christopher Walken here, because he's so fucking good. And this was before everybody knew, get Christopher Walken to play a crazy role. So I think this is the one that really showed people, yeah, he can play fucking terrifying. Tanya Roberts. We have two of the best Bond villains for me. And then we have possibly one of the very worst Bond girls in Stacey Sutton. She straight up disappears for the first half of the film, and then in the second half she comes back, and we don't really learn much about her character other than she's a geologist, and she's just kind of a boring character. Tanya Roberts ain't exactly the greatest actress in the world, and half of her dialogue in the second half is, "James, don't leave me! James!" And it gets really annoying. That this is an actual damsel in distress Bond girl, and I hate it. Patrick Macnee as Tibbet, he's like Bond's like partner that like helps him infiltrate the Zorin like castle or whatever. I love Patrick Macnee. I think he's one of the better, even though not a ton of the Bond films have this, where they have like a random person, and instead of Felix Leiter, they'll have a random person like help Bond. I think he's my favorite of these, because you had like the tennis player in Octopussy, and then Luigi in For Your Eyes Only. I didn't really care about either of those, except the tennis player. I can't remember his name, but he was at least fun. Vijay Armitage, was that his name? Vijay something. But yeah, I love Patrick Macnee here. He has a lot of good witty banter with Roger Moore. And Patrick Beauchamp as Scarpine, not a ton to his character, but he's creepy looking and he works. Also, the opening title sequence I thought was interesting. I wouldn't say it's one of the better ones. It's interesting though. The usage of neon paint, especially the woman like unzipping her like snowsuit, and like 007 being in like her in between her boobs. I thought that was interesting. And yeah, I think it's an interesting title sequence, but the real show stealer here is the song, "A View to a Kill" by Duran Duran. I know a lot of people will be just like, "Oh, you just like 80s music." I do like a lot of 80s music, I really do. But I love this song. I think this is one of the very, very best Bond themes. Not Skyfall, not Writings on the Wall, not... probably not even Goldfinger. I'd put this above Goldfinger. I do still really like Goldfinger, but the song... but I love this song. I really do. Duran Duran did an amazing job. Apparently, Duran Duran approached Eon or Broccoli's, the producers, and said, "Hey, when you gonna let a good band do the title song for a Bond movie?" And then they got the job. So, I think that's funny. But yeah, this film, I do have a bit of a connection to this one, but I'm not letting you know, nostalgia get in the way of my opinion. I'm still judging it as a Bond film, which is what these ratings are. As a Bond film, I think it's good. I don't think it goes above and beyond. I think there are certain problems, there's certain issues, there's certain things I wish were changed, and I will get to those. My main issue with this film has always been the relationship between Bond and Stacey Sutton, because I never really got a romantic spark between them. Same with For Your Eyes Only and Carol Bouquet's character, Melina Havelock. I never got a romantic spark between them. I got more parental, because Melina had lost her parents, so Bond could be like a father figure to her, and I think that would have been a very interesting change, and that would have been actually kind of cool. But instead they sleep together, and it's the same in this one. You don't get really any spark between them, and at the very end they're like having sex in a shower, and I'm like, really? I never really got anything between them, and it doesn't help that Tanya Roberts ain't a great actress. But I mean, rest in peace to Tanya Roberts, of course. Of course, rest in peace to Tanya Roberts, rest in peace to Patrick Macnee. Um, but still, she wasn't much of an actress. No disrespect to her. But yeah, I do think if this film had come out before and then Octopussy was the way that Roger Moore had left, yeah, I think it would have been a lesser movie. But him and Maud Adams, since him and Maud Adams were closer in age, and I felt more of a spark between them, it was insisted that they had history together, that they knew each other, or she had known him for a while. The scene where she's like feeding the fish and he says James Bond and she like stops, insisting that maybe she had been with him at some point and it was like a lost love kind of thing, and she was like a bit sad about it, and then she basically gave up on being sad about it. Like, that would have been more interesting than just ending Roger Moore's tenure as Bond with him in the shower with Tanya Roberts. I never really liked that. There's also the issue of other, like, cast members leaving. Mainly Lois Maxwell. This was the last Bond film where Lois Maxwell played Moneypenny. And I do wish that the ending shot of her wasn't her crying. I really do. I'm glad that they gave her more to do than just be at the desk. This time around, she goes out to the horse track. She has a couple funny lines. But as a way of her going out, I don't know, it's just kind of disappointing to me. It's not like she's the biggest thing about the movies. It's the small things that can really matter at times. And I will say it was a bit weird the way she went out, where they were like, she was listening in on the new M. I think it was Robert Brown. I can't remember the actor's name. But he's like, we still have to declare the Bond is missing and presumed dead, and then you show her like wiping away tears and sobbing, and I'm like, Jesus Christ. Like, and when Q does find Bond with his like little robot thing, his little Wally looking thing, we don't get a shot of her like jumping for joy. I think that would have been sweet, because her and Roger Moore's Bond were kind of more friendly with their banter, and I would have liked to have seen that before she left. But still, it was nice that they gave Lois Maxwell something to do. Now, I've heard this many times from different YouTubers, different reviewers, Bond reviewers specifically, like Calvin Dyson Bond, and I think Dutch Bond fan also talked about this. This film doesn't play to Roger Moore's strengths, really. It tries to go all out on action at times, but during pretty much every action scene, you can very much tell that there is a very obvious stunt double for Roger Moore. The horse racing scene, you can very obviously see the stunt double. The scene where he jumps onto the elevator on the Eiffel Tower. There's the scene. What was the other one? Oh yeah, there's the one where he's jumping onto the bridge that's going up, and you can very clearly see it's like not a shorter guy, but you could tell it's a younger guy. I wish they hadn't gone for that. I wish they would have. I'm not gonna say played it more like Mount the Golden Gun, but maybe more like Live and Let Die, where they didn't try to like go all out on the action. They tried to make it more of a kind of semi-serious, like if they'd gone for a For Your Eyes Only thing, where it wasn't like so outrageous with the action, and that played to Roger Moore's strengths. But I will say, I do like the villain scheme of the whole flooding the San Andreas Fault or whatever. I like it. It's very similar to Goldfinger in a way, but I like it here updated because, to be honest, I find Christopher Walken's Max Zorin a more interesting character than Goldfinger and better acted. I was never crazy about the guy who dubbed Can't remember the actor's name. But I never really... Yeah, I just never really got into Goldfinger. Again, I know, I'll shut up about it. But yeah, it's just this film... Again, it doesn't try to go entirely all out on the action. There's a couple decent action sequences. There's a bit where Bond is in a car, and then the back half of it gets cut off, and then he's like driving around with the front half of the car. There's the horse race, which is fun. The most impressive, I think, is the scene where he's up on the Golden Gate Bridge, I think it is, and he's having kind of a tussle with Max. And I really like that sequence. I really do. I think it's a fun end to that character, and I think it's a fun fight. But yeah, like I said earlier, again, like the worst Bond girl. Like, God, Stacey Sutton is so annoying. Tanya Roberts is so annoying. But yeah, like, the score's definitely better this time around. I really didn't like the Octopussy one. The Octopussy one just felt so, like... How do I explain this? It felt like comedy music. Maybe I just don't gel with the entirely goofy tone that has, like, certain scenes that are, like, really tense. I'm not big on that. If you're gonna go goofy Bond, like, go all out on it. I'm not a fan of when they go, like... Oh, it's a little goofy, and then, it's a little goofy, and then it's like, it's like, oh, one of the agents is running through the forest in a clown costume with knives being thrown at him, and, like, there's just such a weird disconnect that happens for me with that. But yeah, I guess I don't have much more to say about this movie. I do like it, though. I do think it has its moments where it's legitimately tense and exciting. It has its legitimate moments of, like, really interesting characters. Again, in Mayday and Max Zorin. Not so much Stacey Sutton. And yeah, it works as a Bond film. It works. But yeah, I'll get to the pros and cons. Pros... Roger Moore's still decent. Max Zorin is an awesome villain. Christopher Walken was awesome in this. Really liked Mayday, played by Grace Jones. And I like Patrick Macnee. There's some really cool locations. I really like Zorin's big old house with the horse stables next to it. I really do. Or his... Whatever. It's his place where... It's basically a hotel. It's a very pretty hotel. Again, there's some cool action sequences that aren't, like, insane or anything. They're fun. Some pretty great cinematography. Opening sequence and View to a Kill. Awesome. The score, again, from John Barry is improved from the last one for sure. I like that he added in some more, like, electric guitars, kind of like Bill Conti was using in For Your Eyes Only. And cons, again, Tanya Roberts as Stacey Sutton, never been big on her. I do wish that it was more paternal, because I don't feel any spark between Roger Moore and Tanya Roberts, even though Tanya Roberts isn't nearly as young as Melina Havelock. Like, the actress wasn't nearly as young as Carol Bouquet and For Your Eyes Only. And Carol Bouquet, I think, was 23 and a half, and Tanya Roberts was 35. So, a less of an age difference between her and Roger Moore, but she just looks so much younger to me. I think to a lot of other people. But yeah, I could have done without that ending. It didn't really need to be there, and I didn't buy him and Tanya having any type of spark. There were like a couple side characters. There was an Asian girl, and there was Jenny Flex, played by Alison Doody from Last Crusade. She was Elsa. I do wish they got to do something. They really didn't get to do anything in the film. But yeah, other than that, I like the film. I don't think it's a terrible Bond film. I think the people saying it's the worst of Roger Moore's, I really disagree with you. Man with the Golden Gun was way more boring and meandering for me. But yeah, if you like the review, comment down below, like, subscribe. I've got the 200 subscriber giveaway happening whenever I get to 200 subscribers. I'm not 100% sure how I'm gonna do that yet. Maybe through Twitter. Like, I might do like a Twitter DMs thing where you like have to DM me to enter. But yeah, Movie Review Next Door.